Okay, show of hands. How many of you are like me and you've attempted to make a temperature blanket, but by the time you finished just one season, you were bored of the project and you were like, I am not going to continue on this. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there because that's what I tend to hear. Temperature blankets are all the rage at the start of the year, but then by the time we hit March, April, we're bored with them. We want to put them aside. And then they're just this daunting work in progress that's just stuck in the corner. You're like, oh, I got to go work on that. Well, I am here to solve your problem of the uninspired and boring temperature blanket.
Hit it.
In this video, we will learn how to make the Capricious Knit Temperature Scarf. And the best part about it is that we are not going to work on this all year long. No. We are going to choose a snippet of time and we will use various colors that are appealing to us, the colors that make us happy. So you don't have to use rainbow. You can use any color you want. And as far as the increments of temperature, you can apply any increment you want. They don't have to all be even. They could be 3 degrees, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and then go back to 3 degrees. You could do anything you want, which makes this scarf really great for all locations around the world. If you are curious about this and you want to join me on this little adventure, I encourage you to continue on watching this video.
Let the games begin.
All right, so there's a lot of you who are interested. That is great. First things first, if you look in the video description box right down there below, you will find a link which will take you to a blog post that gives you all the information you need regarding the temperature blanket, temperature scarf season along. Now, what does that mean? Well, here's what's going on. My name is Marley Bird and I've partnered up with Mikey from the Crochet Crowd to do this variation of a temperature blanket. He is doing a snippet of time to do a crochet chevron blanket, which is beautiful. And I am doing a snippet of time to do a knit temperature scarf using the Blister Check stitch. So you get a chance to do either the crochet project or the knit project. Both of them are manageable. They are not going to bore you. They are completely exciting to make, and you're going to get that instant gratification when everything is complete. All right, so there's the link down there. On that page, you will also find a workbook that Mikey put together for all of us to use, showing you how to calculate the temperatures and gives you printables so that way you can write down your own temperatures and your own colors you wish to choose. Along with that, you will find the pattern for both the crochet and the knit projects, depending on which one you want to follow along with. Sounds like fun, right? It really is. Okay, so this is the Capricious Temperature Knit Scarf pattern. This pattern here is going to be your guide for how to make your scarf. Now, I used 4 different colors of Ogo, and I split those colors up into individual balls of yarn. That way, I didn't have to buy full balls of yarn to make a little tiny scarf. I just had to buy some Ogos that had a carefully curated palette of colors that I love, and I could just pull from those. So you can see here that I pulled a variety of colors from each one of those Ogos. Then I have all of the instructions for you to make your scarf. If you don't have Ogos, that is fine. You can use any yarn you want for this project. I gave you the stitch multiples so you can change up how many stitches you have, whether you want fewer or maybe you want more. It's totally up to you. So in this video, we are going to learn the Blister Check stitch, which is the main stitch used on the body of the scarf. Once you understand how to do the Blister Check stitch and you get the concept of changing colors every 2 rows and then 4 rows and then 2 rows and then 4 rows, you're going to be well on your way and you will have a completed scarf for this celebrated amount of time that you selected. As I mentioned, I had 4 different Ogos that I separated out into balls of yarn. So I'm just going to grab one color right here. And I am not following any color sequence as we're working through this Blister Check stitch. I'm just going to show you how to do this stitch. I really like the long tail cast on. So I am going to use the long tail cast on to cast on the number of stitches written in the pattern. Once you cast those on, you're going to work in garter stitch for 4 rows, all right? I'm assuming all of you know how to do garter stitch. It's just knitting for 4 rows. You don't need to watch me do that. So let me go ahead and zip through those 4 rows. Once you have completed your 4 rows of garter stitch, we are going to work a row of increases. And these increases will make it so that the gauge between our garter stitch and our check stitch are the same. You will knit 3 stitches and then grab a marker and place it directly onto your right hand needle. This is going to help you remember that the first 3 stitches of the row are in garter stitch. Later on, we'll place a marker down here to remind you that the last 3 stitches are also in garter stitch. Now, here's where we do the increase. We're going to do a make 1 increase, which means we're going to grab that little strand of yarn right there with our left hand needle. So I'm going to go in front of it and scoop it up just like so. You can see that the front leg of that strand of yarn is like leaping forward. It's stepping forward, which means if we knit through that front leg, we're going to get a hole. So I'm going to take my right hand needle, go into the back leg of that stitch and knit into that back leg and let it jump off. Look at that. I don't have a hole. I have a stitch. Everything is great. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work down to the last 3 stitches and do another make 1. All right, to the last 3 stitches, let's work our make 1. It's that strand of yarn right there. So I'm going to scoop it up. Once again, that front leg is stepping forward. So I'm going to knit into the back leg. And I have myself an extra stitch. Take that next stitch marker, place it on your right hand needle, and go ahead and knit those last 3 stitches. Again, that just means we will always keep the last 3 stitches and the first 3 stitches in garter stitch throughout the entire pattern. This is going to help our scarf from not rolling. It might roll just a little bit because the Blister Check is a stockinette stitch base, but once you get a chance to wash and block your scarf, everything should be nice and tidy. At least that's how everything usually turns out. So, okay, so we have finished this row. Now we're going to jump in to the body of the scarf. So I will knit 3 stitches, slip my marker. Oh, I'm just purling to the next marker. Nothing big yet, right? I haven't even changed colors. I'm on the same color for my row 1, and that's going to be important. Now, all of this is important because we're still on day 1 with the same color. So once we get past day 1, we will then transition to day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and we will switch colors, okay? So I'm at the end of day 1. I've done all of my garter stitch, I've done my increase row, and then I've just completed row 1. And it's time to change colors and work what would be my day 2. So I would take my day 2 temperature, see what color is assigned to that, and change colors if I need to, or if it's the same temperature range as this color, I would just continue on. Let's pretend I'm changing colors. So I'm going to grab some scissors here. I always leave a nice long tail when I change colors, okay? It's easier to weave in at the end and it just makes life so much simpler. When I change colors, I like to tie my new color onto my old color. You don't have to do that. I like to do that, and then when I go in to weave in my ends later, I will untie that knot. Now, with day 2, I'm going to work a total of 4 rows, okay? Day 2, you work 4 rows. Day 3, we work 2 rows. Day 4, we work 4 rows. Day 5, we work 2 rows. So on all of your even days of the 1 through 112, you're going to work 4. On all your odd, you're going to work 2. All right. So the great thing about this is we're not doing anything really special with this little bit here. We're going to work basically in stockinette stitch for 4 rows. So I'm going to knit 3. I'll knit across all of these stitches here. And then when I turn my work, I will knit 3, purl to my marker, and then knit 3. I know you can follow your instructions for that, so go ahead and complete your 4 rows because it's really on the next 2 rows that all the action happens. That's where the Blister Check really comes into play, and then once you know how to do that, you're going to be well on your way. So let's get those 4 rows complete. We've knit our 4 with our day 2 color. It's time to switch to your day 3 color, or don't switch, whatever the case may be. So we're going to go ahead and change to a different color. We're assuming that this climate that we're in, man, it has some drastic changes going on here so that we can get some color changes happening. But on row 6, this is where we put into action the tuck stitches. So we're going to follow along with the row 6 instructions, which is not difficult to do. And once you know how to do row 6, you'll know how to do row 12. So we are going to maintain our garter stitch right out here on these outside stitches. So I'm going to do my 3, slip my marker, and here's where all the action takes place, and we work tuck stitches. We will begin by knitting 2, and now we are going to drop this stitch off the left-hand needle and let it fall all the way down to that green stitch from our row 1. So don't panic. Everything is all right. Let all of those floats pop out. See that? So you have all 4 floats and you have this loose stitch right here. Okay? What I want you to do is take your left-hand needle. You're going to go into that stitch and you're going to go underneath all of those floats, okay? All of those floats and that stitch. And now we're going to knit them all together. So you have this green stitch. I'm going to go into the green stitch, I'm going underneath all of those floats and knit it. All right, doesn't look like much yet. I'm going to go ahead, continue on with the pattern. No idea why I switched over to English style knitting, but apparently my body wanted to do that, so we're going to do that. So we knit 3, and we're going to do that again. So here's my stitch. I'm going to let it drop off my left-hand needle and undo all 4 of those stitches. So I'm down to my green right there. Okay, so that's my green stitch. I'm going to go underneath my green stitch, or into my green stitch, underneath my floats, and then knit into my green stitch. Okay, knit 3, and you would repeat this pattern all the way down till you get to your stitch marker. So if you increase stitches or decrease stitches, you will use whatever stitch multiple you have. Just keep working your repeat and it will come out just fine. All right, last one. I'm going to take this off, undo each one of those. It gets less scary as you work along. Go underneath those strands of yarn and knit this together. Finish with my knit 2 before my marker, slip my marker, and then knit to the end. I'm going to put my yarn back in my other hand. No idea why I switched. That's so odd. But let's knit to the end and let's see what we have. So as you take a look here, what you will notice is you have these little like puffs, or they look like sort of like a blister pack of color that pops up. And it's because we've dropped those or that stitch with that color, picked up the stitch beneath, and we've pulled it up sort of like a slip stitch. And then by working using our pink yarn through that green stitch and wrapping it around those floats, we've trapped them so that way the back side of our scarf is going to be reversible without a bunch of really loose floats hanging out there. You see that? And so what will happen is on the back of your scarf, you get this beautiful sort of honeycomb look. And so both sides of your scarf are beautiful, right? Here we are right here. You can see these are all your blister checks. The stitches have been dropped down to be picked up and pulled up. So this project was worked this way. But I mean, come on, that is so pretty. That is so pretty. Once you have finished row 6, you will continue on with the same color and complete row 7, which is just stockinette. So you will knit the first 3 stitches, purl between your markers, and knit the last 3 stitches. When you get to row 8, 9, 10, and 11, you are back to working stockinette stitches, but you've now changed colors. You're back to where the next day you're using 4 colors. When you get to day 12, you'll notice that when you work across, your tuck stitch is going to be in a different place than where it was on the previous rows. It's probably easier to see up in here. You can see this one. This was a row 6 tuck stitch. Our row 12's tuck stitch is up here. So they are sort of catty corner to each other. And that gives us sort of this checkered look. So that's why we get the blister check. Once you finish row 12, you're still on day 4, and we still need to do the second row, and that will actually be row 1 of the entire row repeat. You'll notice in the pattern I did put in there row 13, just because for those of you who are like me, it just makes sense to think of, oh, so 12 and 13, that'll give me my 2 rows with that one color, and now I go back to row 2, and then I'm going to do 4 colors, so on and so forth. So really, whenever you're doing 2 colors, on the first row, you're working that tuck stitch. On the second row, you're just doing stockinette. Makes it pretty easy, but man, do you get a really great impact on these stitches. I mean, look how pretty this is. It is absolutely gorgeous. Once you've reached your 112 days, it's time to do a row of decreases just to get us back to the right gauge for our garter stitch. You work 4 rows of garter stitch and bind off. Now, here is the biggest tip I'm going to give you. You guys ready? Come closer, come closer. Weave in your ends as you go. Don't wait to the end. That is one of the biggest problems that people have finishing a temperature blanket or a temperature scarf, is that they wait till the very end to weave in those ends, and it is a daunting process. So as you finish your sections of color, weave in your ends as you go. It'll make things so much easier. That way, when you reach the end of your project, it will be done. You don't have to do any extra finishing. All right, now go grab some yarn, put together your color combinations with the temperatures in the location you're choosing, and have fun with this. When you're working on your project, whether it's the start, the middle, the finish, make sure you're sharing with us on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag MarleyMadeMeDoIt, or better yet, hashtag temperature scarf. That way everybody can see your beautiful progress. Good luck, everybody. I cannot wait to see your project.